Welcome, traveler. This is going to be another book review. There's a few more that I want to do before I want to change gear towards something else. I'm thinking about showing fantasy metal, really going into that, looking at all my favorite bands and talking about the fantasy stories that they like to sing about and showing you snippets of those. But a few more books that I want to cover before we do something slightly different. Today we're going to be talking about Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Now, I saw a lot of hubbub on the internet about this one. A lot of people were talking about it. There was loads of enthusiasm. I never really thought too much about it, but then I saw some reviews, especially Tutor Ramble. They spoke a lot about it. I watched their video on that, and they couldn't praise it more. I thought I'd give the hype a go, see what it was all about. A lot of books that Tutor Ramble review are fantasy and sci-fi, so I knew I was making a safe choice going into the fantasy realm. Maybe misled by the cover with the satyr on it. I thought it was about a satyr who was trapped in this magical place. So when I started reading it, I was a little bit taken aback, realizing that this was a human, and a few elements were trickled in that made me realize that it wasn't pure fantasy or high fantasy, which I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to that. I like my fantasy real, pure, uncut. I was momentarily taken aback when I saw that this was, I suppose you'd call it, magical realism. Before we jump into talking about the prose, the characters, the magic system, and the world building, which again might not really fit to a magical realism piece, I just wanted to show you a quick clip where I do a little bit of reading, and this is my ode to Piranesi because it was an enchanting and mesmerizing book. The beauty of the house is immeasurable. I'm determined to explore as much of the world as I can in my lifetime. To this end, I've traveled as far as the 960th hall to the west, the 890th hall to the north, and the 768th hall to the south, and statues appear suddenly out of the mists. I've explored the drowned halls where the dark waters are carpeted with white water lilies. No hall, no vestibule, no staircase, no passage is without its statues. In most halls, they cover all the available space, though here and there you will find an empty plinth, niche, or asp. In some places the figures are 2 or 3 times the height of a human being. The drowned halls contain statues that are gigantic, 15 to 20 meters high, but they are the exception. I've begun a catalogue in which I intend to record the position, size and subject of each statue. The enormity of this task sometimes makes me feel a little dizzy. As a scientist and an explorer, I have a duty to bear witness to the splendor of the world. There are some statues that I love more than the rest. It is the statue of a faun. I dreamt of him once. He was standing in a snowy forest. So, hopefully you enjoyed that clip. This was me walking around the Victoria and Albert, also known as the V&A in London, which is a big museum full of art. And once I had read this book, I was obsessed. And I needed to just surround myself with statues and feel like I was in a nowhere place. So that was the first place that I decided to go because I knew they had, halls full of statues. So before we begin, here's the blurb. Piranesi lives in the house. Perhaps he always has. Then messages begin to appear, scratched out in chalk on the pavements. There is someone new in the house. But who are they and what do they want? Lost texts must be found, secrets must be uncovered. The world that Piranesi thought he knew is becoming strange and dangerous. The beauty of the house is immeasurable, its kindness infinite. This book, very rarely do books really sort of capture my imagination, and this one, as I've seen some people review, really drew me in. And it was a place that I longed to return to. I was excited to open the book and just sort of hang out there as long as I could. So a bit of background. Piranesi finds himself in the house, which are these endless halls, these rooms and rooms, chambers after chambers, filled with different kinds of statues, as you might have noticed from the the clip that I read. He lives there, and on the upper floors, it's filled with clouds. In the middle floors, there are birds. In the lower floors, there are these oceans, and he can hear the swelling and the battering, the booming of these tides. And the setting for me was all I needed to enjoy the book. The rest of it, all the little details and the mysteries and the secrets, sure. But for me, it was the setting that I loved. Onto the prose. So I found that it was well written. Now, this book has won and was nominated for more awards than that fit on a single page. I couldn't understand how one book can be so acclaimed. Now, the writing is very straightforward. It's simple. It's pretty in certain parts. There are moments of sort of reminiscence, a bit of nostalgia, and it's sprinkled in, which is nice. The voice of Piranesi, these are all written in these sort of journal entries. And the voice of Piranesi is what is probably the strongest thing in the story. We really get a sense of who he is, this sort of wandering, potentially naive person who accepts things the way they are, doesn't question things too much, but admires the beauty that is around him. Despite his existence being quite difficult, he accepts it and learns to live at peace and one with his surroundings. So the way it's written is very strong, and the way it's structured really drips in all of these little hints and all of these little mysteries. So really the pacing is great. The structure is meticulously created in order to throw you in the middle of a situation where you have no idea what's going on, and little by little Susanna Clarke keeps giving you these tidbits of information, and you go, that's strange. How does that link with this? And bit by bit, you start coming to your own conclusions, which is fantastically done. The prose is really well selected, not overdone. It's easy to read. And this is a very short book too. It took me, a couple of weeks. Being a slow reader, for me, that's great. Onto the characters. So already mentioned a bit about Piranesi being the sort of naive, wide-eyed person of bewilderment. The other characters who do play their roles are very significant as well. The other is the only other person at the start of the book who Piranesi knows, and even the interactions between them, despite the way that Piranesi views their relationship, is really subtle. There's a lot of undertones, and as the reader, you get to read more into who these people are, what their relationships are, and again, fascinating. So really strong characters, and there are other characters that are referred to later who are quite remarkable. In fact, sometimes a bit shocking. So really, really well crafted, really rich, believable characters. Really well done. As I've mentioned before, the world building is fascinating. Now, because it's magical realism, I don't want to say too much, but we're going to focus on the house. And as I've already mentioned, this setting, the only way I can really describe it when I started reading this, it was the backrooms of Greek architecture. It's the only way I can really describe it. You have these endless halls, and he's mapping out this world that is this marble museum filled with statues. And here's a bit of a spoiler, so skip ahead a few seconds if you don't want to hear this, but you never really find out what this place is, how big it really is, what it actually, suggests. This world that she creates made me as a reader just want to walk around it. I wanted to be there, to smell the air, to see the things about me, to see these birds that collect on the statues that flit from one place to another, to see these cavernous rooms filled with water, to see the places where the clouds touch the house. Absolutely incredibly done. And for an author to be able to draw you in like that and want to create a world that you literally want to escape into, good job, really. Last thing is the magic system. Again, because it's magical realism, brushes on the magic, but again, the only hints towards it are sort of the occult. There might be sort of ritualistic magics. And again, here's a bit of a spoiler. I don't want to say too much, so skip ahead. I'll give you the timestamp. But there's sort of portal magic as well, sort of entering and shifting between dimensions, which, what does it mean? Who knows? In conclusion, the positives of this book were the pacing, incredibly easy to read. The length, incredibly fast to read. The prose was great. The characters were great. I can't find much fault to this book. Now, is it my favorite book of all time? Probably not. Did I enjoy it a whole lot? Yeah. Did it really make me wonder and dream? Definitely. The negatives of the book, I haven't actually thought a whole lot about the negatives. I have to say that I can't really think of anything really negative about it. The only thing I suppose is that I wish I were there. I wish this thing was real. Maybe it is. You know, I bought this for my birthday. I treated myself and I thought, you know what, it's time to read this. And I did not regret it. Yeah, smells good. In conclusion, if you haven't read this book, just go read it. Honestly, you can't miss out on reading this. I don't want to be one of those super fans because I'm not, but it is really good. This was perfect to just pick up, lose myself in, and really gain a lot from. So until then, safe travels.